Ron, well, I am very happy to be with you. It's exciting to have someone from California. It's a beautiful place. I can see the sun shining there. We are in winter still here in the south, but uh, I know about you. I know that Ronald Navarro is a synonym of uh, shoulder prosthesis registries, and I have read a lot about you related to that important topic. In fact, you are an example to follow for us to develop in our country those kind of registries. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, Dr. Moya, can I call you Daniel?
Of course.
Okay, Daniel, it is my humble honor to be able to sit here with you today. And I always see these interchanges between international friends as ways where we can all teach each other and all learn from each other. It's back and forth. I think your country is amazing, and your surgeons are even more so. And I'm so proud to be able to be here with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And we always begin with a question that is, how did you become a shoulder surgeon? And I know that in your case, it's a very interesting story.
Well, thank you for the question. It's two things. Originally, when I was growing up, I had an older brother who was an athletic trainer for a number of different sports teams in a college atmosphere. And he was much older than me, and he influenced me to see the beauty and love of sports and sports medicine. And I thought I would follow in his footsteps. And he called me Ronnie. He said, "No, Ronnie, you're much smarter than I am. You want to become an orthopedic surgeon. I'll tell you, you know my history. My father and mother from Mexico, and not a lot of formal education. And so I didn't really even know what orthopedic surgeons were when I was much younger. But after he taught me this as a young teenager, I learned more about it, and it became my goal to become an orthopedic surgeon. And then, of course, I wanted to go into sports medicine, which included shoulder surgery, but that was still early in shoulder surgery in terms of a super subspecialty. So I was fortunate enough to go for after my formal orthopedic training to University of Pittsburgh. And of course, Dr. J.P. Warner was there at that time. He, of course, later left to Harvard. He really influenced my life in terms of my love for shoulder surgery. And really, it was after that point where I said, of course, I'm going to get out. And most people who want to do well broadly when they're out of training and want to work, they need to do everything. And I've learned to do everything, and I still take call, and I will still put a rod in a femur for a fracture, but most of my elective work is now shoulder, and I've been fortunate enough to be in a system that allows me to get to a majority of shoulder surgery.
Good. So, and if we mention your mentors, for sure, Dr. Warner is there.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
Yeah. Would you like to know others? Just in this life, I've been able to be blessed. Once I became more involved in the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons, there are so many. Mark Frankel really took me under his wing and has really been such a kind gentleman to me in the early parts of my time as a member of the ASCS. A lot of the guys from Rothman have been kind friends. Joe Aboud is a great guy, and we don't share as much about cases, but also an influence. And he's younger than me, but we've gotten to be closer friends through committees. And lastly, Anthony Romeo. I knew him, and I interviewed with his program, and I chose to go to Pittsburgh instead of Rush. And Bernie Bach, who was the leader there at that time, still chides me about this. But Dr. Romeo and I have remained friends, and he's a great influence too.
Good. And is there any procedure that you prefer most, a surgical technique that you enjoy?
You know, interestingly, of course, all of shoulder surgery is great. I really love clavicle fractures as well as distal clavicle fractures and third degree and even beyond separations with newer techniques. Even though I don't do them as much as shoulder arthroplasty and instability and certainly cuff repair, I just find that that's challenging. And another dear friend is from Tulane. Oh my gosh, I'm blocking on his name now. Some of the guys from some of my other experience have said, you know, that fracture and those problems are hard to find a successful result for. And so it's challenging. You know, there's many techniques, and so that means nobody has figured out the one technique.
Yes.
And so that's the interesting thing at times. You know,
I love what I perform. I learned it from Carl Basmania. I'm sure you know him, and Carl had a great experience dealing with army patients.
Yes.
So he had a lot of experience on clavicle fracture, distal clavicle fracture, and AC separations. And he taught me the cerclage with PDS, and I love that procedure. I have done it for the last almost 30 years, and I love that. It is a very reliable procedure, cheap, and very anatomical.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, but what I was trying to think of was my good friend Buddy Savoie. He's a wonderful man,
of course.
and he always jokes. He says, "Ron, how many of those have you followed up and looked at? I'm sure you're going to find that they're dislocated again." Well, you know, when you do the follow up, you find how good you're not.
yes, that's true. But it is a acromioclavicular joint. It's very interesting, very
Yes. And so a friend of mine helped to design a twin-tailed tightrope from Arthrex. So a single potted metal plus the sutures below the coracoid, but then two separate arms into the clavicle. And so you can position them in a way that the clavicle can reduce superior to inferior and anterior posterior if you drill the tunnels differentially. And I've been wanting to write that up to show that I think that that's the way to go, because you can reduce the changes. And so I want to collect all my cases to get that together. In saying that, somebody else will do it before me.
You know, I will send to you a paper that we did about the medial coracoclavicular ligament, or the Caldani ligament. And it is very interesting because we perform a sequential cut of the ligaments, and we realize that it has a role in the stability, in the vertical way, but also it prevents the clavicle to go back. I will send it. It's interesting.
Yeah, like a check rein. It holds it from going too far posterior, yeah?
Yes. And
wonderful, please.
I trained with Dr. Rogut, so having him there and speaking about the classification was really very fun.
I want to interview you one day and get all the Rockwood stories.
Well, you know that I was thinking to put a bunch of guys of Rockwood former fellows, and every day was a surprise with Dr. Rockwood.
Yes.
There are so many stories, so many that some of them are part of not only the American, the world history of shoulder surgery. And they are
somebody so epic like Codman or something like this, who's so larger than the work we do, has left such a great impact. Like you are.
No, me no. I'm just a guy that has the chance to have these tools and do things. That's all. And how is the life of a shoulder surgeon in California?
You know, I'm very blessed to be in a situation. I work for a very large organization, Kaiser Permanente, that allows us to be able to practice without worries of the billings and that sort of thing. We're somewhat salaried, but we make a very nice living, and so that is taken care of. And so I just seek the truth in indicating for patients, and largely the particular hospital that I'm at, it's got 10 to 12 orthopedic surgeons, and we are all different subspecialties. And I was the chief of that department from 2000 to 2009. So we retired out many people who just wanted to retire. And when I hired new people, I hired them like an academic grouping. So it's beautiful. I don't have to worry about getting all the cuff cases, because the person who's doing hand surgery doesn't want the cuff cases, and the person who's doing ankle surgery doesn't want the cuff cases. So we're not competing. It's very, very nice. And so for me, it's wonderful. Certainly in that system, there's not a lot of drive to me to take your cases, because we all get paid relatively the same. You get more increases in compensation in years of service. So when you're there 20 years, you make more than the person that's there 5 years. And I don't mean to talk about money in that way, but when the money is taken out of the equation, we all just do the surgeries for the love of the surgery.
Good. And do you have time to have a hobby?
Oh, that's funny. I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I try to do work to publish when I'm not doing my clinical work, and I have a lot of administrative work. But I work out fairly often, both running, and I'm doing a lot more Pilates now that the COVID is here. I can't go to my Pilates studio, but that has kept me feeling young. I'm 58, and I have a 14-year-old daughter, so I have to remain young and strong.
Yes. Good. That's a good reason. Very good reason. And is there any meeting, any trip abroad or in the US that reminds you something important? I'm sure you have been in many congresses, meetings.
I would have to say, the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons is such an honored group to be a part of, and at one point it's always been hard to get into, but at the point that I got in, it was extremely hard. So, we all tried a couple times, and when I finally got in, it was such an honor for me to get there. And you've been to some of these meetings where there's only 200 people in the room, and it's such a small grouping, and you look around and you say, that person's famous for that paper, and that person's famous for that technique. Everybody in the room, it was like the who's who. So It was my first ASCS meeting of 200 people, and we were in North Carolina at Pinehurst. It's a famous golf course area, so it's a little hard to get to, but well worth it. It's just a quaint town, and every single morning there was still a lot of that repartee, arguing, so to speak, between the speaker and the people at the microphones in a respectful way, but really debating so deeply. And I think I love how organizations can become larger, and for the most part, many organizations require that in order to remain financially stable. But when the organization was so small and everybody in the room was so important, it seemed like it was otherworldly. It was like the who's who of articles and book chapters and books.
Yes. I understand that, because I went through that, and it's amazing just walking around and crossing the people. It's like being at the Oscars, something.
Yes. Yeah. For people like us, we respect our peers so much. What an amazing experience. I have to give you great credit, because I was able to spend some time in Buenos Aires for the meeting just in September. And what a wonderful time, and learned so much, and had great great relationships building with many people. You know, I'm involved in registries in Southern California with Kaiser Permanente, but our international group met there too at the hotel. And then, of course, wonderful steak dinners at night with Malbec, besides all of the rest.
Good. We were very lucky because having the Congress this year would have been a disaster. So we were very lucky. And you know, when we were organizing the meeting, we all, especially Osvandre Lech from Brazil, were looking to have a session on registries. And we finally had the best feedback from all of you, and was a great session. It was very important.
Thank you very much for having that. And I really thought there were people sitting in the room, I think from America, who are less invested in registries, that I was impressed that were there, you know. And so we still have work to do to kind of impress upon people that that's a piece of the overarching research, you know. I always want to write about my 15 cases, and if we can write about all of our thousands of cases, I think it's more impactful.
Well, we will need your help, because we are looking forward to create a strong registry in Argentina. We already have organized by the Orthopedic Association hip and knee registries, but we need to develop a shoulder registry.
Yes. Well, you know that both the ISAR, International Society for Arthroplasty Registries, is an international organization that I'm involved with through Kaiser Permanente, and we've long believed that we should grow their registries. This ISAC, the National Shoulder Arthroplasty Consortium, is the small grouping within ISAR that is all shoulder arthroplasty registries, and we do everything we can to help build registries. Excel files with data that's due out, and that sort of is and bolts of what it takes started. So offline, please don't ever hesitate. We're always ready to help.
Thank you very much. And how do you see the future of our specialty? What do you see?
You know, I'm a little concerned, not for orthopedics. I'm concerned for COVID and its impact on finances, and how there's going to be a change away from, I fear that there might be a change away from innovation, because innovation costs money, and who's going to pay for that? You know, America is seen as this wealthy place, but there's cost pressures that we're seeing, and our own federal government, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, is looking at big changes that they just announced for during this conversation we're having in August of 2020 for 2021, where they're going to cut back on pay for fee-for-service orthopedists. Once again, won't hurt me, but I want all boats to rise. I want us all to be successful. So that's going to be hard, and they're going to probably look hard at more expensive services. So that's where I have some trepidation. I also believe Dr. Warner is a big influence on me with innovation and being an entrepreneur. And although I can't do that as much in my setting, I also believe that there's a space for that, so that we can continue to be better and do better, based in part on the things you might think of to have a new device that would help make a surgery easier, faster, etc. So we can't vitally block that. So that's the trepidation and fear I have for the future. But I think shoulder surgery will continue to iterate, and I hope we'll get through this and see a better time on the other side. So overall, I'm optimistic, but right now I do have some fears about the short term.
Yes.
What do you think?
No, I completely agree with you. We are going through a very complicated and unexpected situation. So we are still going through it, and it is difficult to have a final balance yet. You know, we still have, I think we will have several months that will be complicated in the future. Yeah.
Yes. Until there's a vaccine and immunity.
Yes.
And I also have learned a long time ago, in order for me to navigate the present, I have to be in the present. So I have to deal with this as it is and not hope that is dashed or removed from you. It can sadden your heart. So I'd rather have just expectation that this is my life, not anything
Good.
else for
Good.
now, you know?
Yes, and speaking about hope, Ron, do you have a 14 years old daughter?
Yes.
And do you have more children?
I have a daughter who's just starting third year at university, and she's by at UCLA, at University of California, Los Angeles. So she's about 30 miles up the road, and she's actually already living there because we had to start paying for an apartment before the school year started in the middle of the summer. Then COVID hit, and so she was with us for last spring quarter or semester, last 10-week period of the spring, and now she wanted to get away from us. Just a
Well,
distance.
that's normal.
She's a 20-year-old. Yeah,
Of course. Yeah.
I just was talking to her before I spoke with you, but yeah.
Good.
So two daughters.
Two
How
daughters.
about you?
No, I
Yeah.
have two sons. One is 28 and the other is 25. So
Fantastic.
yeah. But you remind me something. I love Mark Twain's says, and there was one that he said, when I was 14, something like that, 14, 15, I considered my father stupid. And when I was 20, I couldn't believe how much my father had improved in such a short time.
Right.
So,
I remember that. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
that's very good, very nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Ron,
Yeah.
was great talking to you. Hope that we have the chance to have you back in Argentina in the future when all these problems disappear. And we will be in touch.
And the invitation is mutual. If ever a chance that you or any of your colleagues are in Los Angeles area, please look me up, and we can both enjoy each other's company and do some work together.
Good, great. We keep in touch, Ron. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's wonderful. I'm honored once again. Thank you.
My honor. Thank you.